A visual thrill unlike any other, The Talking Heads' Stop Making Sense isn't just a concert film, it's an all-access pass to a legendary live performance. Directed by Jonathan Demme, this 1984 masterpiece shatters the barrier between the audience and the stage, pulling you directly into the eccentric world of The Talking Heads. Filmed over 4 nights at the Hollywood Pantages Theatre, this is a transcending fusion of innovative choreography, dynamic lighting, and raw emotion. Behold David Byrne's captivating theatricality and the band's musical genius as they push the boundaries of live performance films. Demme's groundbreaking one-take illusion creates an intimacy that makes you feel as if you're standing in the wings, experiencing the magic firsthand. Stop Making Sense is more than a benchmark. It's an immersive and daring cinematic event that continues to inspire filmmakers and musicians to this day. Please welcome founding Talking Heads member Jerry Harrison to Face the Music.
This is Jerry Harrison of the Talking Heads, and it's time to face the music with Joby Rogers.
Stop Making Sense was filmed over 4 nights. The original home video release included a special edition that restored 2 songs, Cities and Big Business. Were there any specific moments that didn't make the original cut that you would have liked to see included in the film's theatrical release?
Well, those 2 songs are available on the Blu-ray of the restored film. In fact, there's 2 versions because we could not find the original negative of those 2 songs. So there's Jonathan Demme's edits, which is in more standard definition, maybe it's HD. And then there's another version where we took the negative that we could find and someone else edited it. So it's slightly different. There's a different style a little bit to the editor. But so for the obsessed, buy the Blu-ray and you can see these different ways of looking at those 2 songs. It's actually 3 songs because it's Big Business going into Zimbra, and then it's also Cities. I quite like it with them, but the original film is 90 minutes long, and there is this whole idea in film that 90 minutes is a really great length, and that when you go over that, you are stretching the audience's attention span, so to speak. You see this in all sorts of films these days that are a little bit too long, you might say, and you go, God, I think there's a scene or 2 that they could have cut out. And then you go back to a film you love, like Apocalypse Now, and you see. I think that Francis now likes the middle length cut, but I was watching it with my son, and we said, let's see. I want to see every scene, so we watched the longest version. So I guess it depends on your motivation at the time.
Jonathan Demme's one-take illusion and the decision to really show the audience creates an incredibly intimate and immersive experience. And this was a departure from most traditional concert films. So it feels like, as an audience member, you feel you're either in the front row or, better yet, you're in the wings watching the show. And he used 4 different camera angles to deliver that specifically. Was your opinion, was that the best way to film the show? Was the intention to make the audience, to make the viewer feel like he was part of the show rather than just, in the audience?
Absolutely. I think that there was a woman named Sandy McLeod who was sort of, I think she was like an assistant director or second director. I can't remember what her title is. And she had been on tour with us for a week or 2, and she took copious notes of interesting interactions that took place in each song that she gave to Jonathan, and he put together, you might say, a shot list of what absolutely one camera needed to be on as the songs progressed. And as you said, we filmed it over 4 nights at the Pantages, and so he sometimes could get those events from multiple angles. I think there's an intimacy and a sort of in-your-face quality to the film. It's not a lot of distant shots. There are sometimes these tracking shots that begin farther out and then come dolly in so that you can see something more specifically. And he tells the story of you in a certain way of like an ensemble group acting out a play where you get to know like you're allowed to get to know each member of the band. Then you see each member of the band maybe having a sort of musical or sometimes including a dance conversation with someone else in the band. And I think that that really um, is very, I don't know, intimate and real and presents each person as an individual.
The start of the film, in my opinion, is a masterclass in building a concert from the ground up. I mean, David makes a minimalist and now iconic entrance with
Yes.
just the boombox and an acoustic guitar, followed with Tina and then Chris and then yourself. So the gradual introduction of each band member and their instrument becomes a key part of the show's narrative. Can you discuss the creative decision behind the progressive assembly of the band and what you hoped to convey to the audience through that approach?
When we first introduced the big band after the album Remain in Light and when Adrian Belew was in the band, we came on with just the four of us for a few songs, and then we said we're not like we used to be, and then we introduced the rest of the band. So this idea of introducing an expanded band had started a few years earlier, but I think that David said, I think we can make this a dramatic uh, device that that not only is the band coming out one member at a time, but the stage is being built a block at a time. And so, and this is how the idea of the rolling risers came, which included not only our monitors, but the instruments we were playing, but the monitors for us to hear ourselves. It was funny because what there was a guy Hans who's in the stage crew. He's the guy who's carrying a light where uh, David puts the microphone in front of the guy on the stage crew and he says something. That's Hans.
Did you choreograph this or was this something just kind of off the
Well,
cuff?
this is one of those things that I think one night it was off the cuff and then it became part of the show. Basically, the dance moves were not choreographed by a choreographer. They were something that developed over playing the show for a year.
Right.
And then uh, certain things seemed to work and like, let's do that again.
So speaking of the dance moves, the film's visual identity is defined by David's highly unique performance, which includes his kind of spastic dancing and his
Mm.
iconic big suit. So
Yes.
this was a deliberate contrast of, and I think it added a very human, eccentric performance to the bit and to the very, like you said, a minimalist backdrop when you first started out. Do you think that concept was amplified by the music or by the core performance?
Well, I think that I think David uh, experimented, filming himself or in front of a mirror and tried to create a movement for that was individual to each song. David had spent some time with Tony Basil, who was a professional choreographer who worked with the Lockers that used to be on Saturday Night Live. She's also the woman who did "Hey Mickey, You're So Fine,"
Oh yeah.
right? And they had done the video for Once in a Lifetime together. And before that, Tony had done the video for Cross-Eyed and Painless. I think that his collaboration with Tony is that Tony was very interested in uh, coordinated movement by people who weren't necessarily dancers. So she would do things like with cheerleaders or with, you know, other groups of people who were doing, or athletes, or someone who was doing sophisticated movements. As the tours developed, David's movements became more defined for each song. And it's very true. You know, he has the one where he's kind of moving like this.
Mhm.
And my wife and I went to the Rome Film Festival where the new version of Stop Making Sense was one of the films that was featured. And they had a second screening up in Milan at well, I don't know if you'd call it a discotheque, but a place where they played live music and they also played, they had raves or whatever, and they had these dancers come out to try and teach the audience before the show David's moves. So they had picked out a series of like eight of his dance moves to try and teach the audience. There was a rack of big suits that people could try on and have and it was really a fun event. It's like people just were really, really having a good time.
Most concert films use interviews and behind the scenes B-roll shots to tell a more complete story.
Hmm.
But Stop Making Sense was conceived as a pure stage concert, intentionally stripping away those elements to keep the focus on the raw performance. What do you feel that approach added to the film's impact?
I think that it's one of the reasons that it stands the test of time, because I think that any film, even one as great as The Last Waltz, is how many times do you want to have a conversation where Robbie Robertson is saying this to Garth Hudson or something like that? It's like, you know, it's fine, but after three times, okay, that's enough. I'll watch it in 5 years. Whereas this film, you can put it on and it's like putting on a record and you can dance to it and you can watch it and you can sit down and watch for a while and then you can get up and dance and your back is to it and you're okay with it because, it's like an album. It has a life of its own. I've often thought that as cool as MTV was, it also took away people having their own video in their mind. And is it was that, so you lose something as well as
Kind
gain.
of like a movie and a book.
Yeah, yeah. It's like sometimes like if I can only picture it one way now, and I used to picture it in a very different way.
The Talking Heads are often described as a melting pot of funk, art rock, and
Yeah.
multicultural musicianship. Could you talk about the band's various musical influences, how they came together to form the Talking Head sound, and how did you channel, as a guitar player, the broader cultural trends into your specific art?
I think that one of the most important things is that we were not blues based. We definitely came out of a New York sensibility that I would say really begins with the Velvet Underground. I think that there's this uh, passing of a certain stylistic torch, you might say, acerbic and short, relatively short songs, usually, starting with the Velvet Underground, with the Stooges, the Modern Lovers are next. Patti Smith, I would put in that group. And then suddenly when CBGBs began, Television being the first band to play at CBGBs, but then the Ramones, the Talking Heads, Blondie, they all had this kind of New York sense. And New York at that time had gone through this recession of the early 70s and into the mid 70s because they had overbuilt, which meant that and light industry was sort of clearing out and going to North Carolina, the sort of sweatshops for the rag trade. And so there was a lot of empty space. And so rent was cheap. And that was really important. I think cheap rent is the most important thing for good art. And, people, you would walk down the street and you could run into everyone from Robert Rauschenberg to Philip Glass to Mickey Ruskin, who was sort of had a series of clubs, including Max's Kansas City, but the Lower Manhattan Ocean Club, the local one university. He was he was most excited by the abstract expressionists. If de Kooning came in, he would kick out Warhol and he would kick out he'd kick out maybe he'd allow Andy to stay, but get rid of Mick Jagger and David Bowie. You know. Um, and he was a really interesting guy, and he was an important part of having sort of a clubhouse. And of course, CBGB's was a clubhouse. Hilly was really great that he allowed the bands to. We basically got the door. So if we had shows where people were sold out, we could make some real money. We had to pay 10% for the maintenance of the sound system and to pay the mixer, and he took the bar. And this is, I mean, this you contrast with this, now or even back 15, 20 years from now, where it's almost pay to play. A band has to guarantee that a club, they have to pre-buy 200 tickets
Right.
that they can sell to their fans, but that, you know, not every band has the money to do that.
Jonathan Gold of the New Yorker said that "Stop Making Sense" inadvertently became the Talking Heads' performing swan song,
Mhm.
representing both a pinnacle and a conclusion for the band's live career. So,
Yes.
looking back 40 years now, how does it feel to have created a film that is so widely regarded as the band's ultimate creative and performing high point, yet also marks the end of the era?
Well, we never thought it was going to be the end when it was going down. Um, but I do think there was a self-conscious sense of what are we going to do to top this? That might have been a little bit of a um, give people a pause about what they wanted to do next. When we did Little Creatures, we had some ideas about going out with a smaller lineup, since it was a sort of Americana songs. The most we could do with four, maybe with one extra person, and doing residencies at various theaters, but it just never happened. And then the further we did do after Remain in Light, we had done all the solo careers, and personally, I thought we had the right balance between allowing everyone to express themselves as an individual and then coming together as a group and doing something unique together. It just didn't. It just. I guess it didn't happen. I think that David, when he did the movie True Stories, had suddenly his own office. And I think maybe he liked having people that almost always said yes rather than. And a band is a little bit like a extended family, and more likely to have someone in the band goes like, "I'm not doing that," and that could be frustrating for someone. So
There's a rumored story that a significant portion of the original audio masters for the film were nearly lost forever when the storage studio where it was kept went bankrupt.
right, and
Rumored that an employee saved the recordings.
well,
Confirm if that happened or not.
I know that some of the recordings ended up being at a vault in Kansas that MGM has. And how they got there, nobody quite knows, but thankfully we found them.
So you're a seasoned guitar player, needless to say. With that being said, in terms of composition, what's your favorite Talking Head song and why?
Well, I can't say that I have a favorite, but I would say that The Great Curve is absolutely might be my favorite song. I think that Adrian's solos on The Great Curve are extraordinary. I think that the contrapuntal vocals that are particularly well represented now that we're doing surround sound mixes. Just a
Mhm.
little bit of Charles Ives of the two different marching bands coming towards you in the middle of the theater. And it's a just this amazing experience of all of this interlocked music. Whereas you can zero in on a part, then you're sort of losing the other part, but they're all working together. So I guess I think that's my favorite. I mean, This Must Be the Place is just an unbelievable song. It's, one of the few songs that's kind of romantic that David wrote. And it's a very weird, tricky song. It's just odd. It's hard to cover it too, to get it right. So anyway, those are two of them.
You're playing in general, there is some blues influence behind it, yeah.
Maybe as I went on further, I played keyboards first, and I did not start playing guitar until I was in the Modern Lovers, and Jonathan changed his guitar playing. And I said, "Well, who's going to play your original parts?" And he kind of shrugged, and I said, "Well, someone has to. I guess I'll do it." And he gave me a Telecaster, and I learned how to play all of his original parts. So actually, when we were recording with Kim Fowley, sometimes I played the parts that Jonathan had played. Um, and that's how I became a guitarist. And so I did not come particularly out of a blues background at that time. But in high school and in college, I played in bands that covered a lot of blues bands. So I was kind of familiar with it. And it was very exciting when I was able to record Kenny Wayne Shepherd with Double Trouble, because I really started to learn things about the blues that I thought I had known, but that I didn't know.
Blue on Black, favorite
Yes,
Kenny song, man. So I got one last thing for you. I am committed to transcending my profession,
yes.
so to speak. So with that in mind, do you have any comments or critiques of this interview or anything you'd like to add?
I think we covered a lot of material, a lot of, I was happy to be asked questions that are not always the same ones I get asked. So hats off to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for taking the time and much, much, much appreciated.
You bet.